Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ears to the East, where it is all news. There's a lot of news this week. And so me and Neon thought we'd dive in and talk about a little bit of it. And the first thing that we really had to jump on was, well, SAKI is out at NEMOPHILA, which is seemingly by choice. We only have the information from their announcement, which we'll obviously have a look at in just a second. But yeah, initial thoughts. How did you find out about this? What was your feelings?
Um, Gutted actually, to be honest. Unexpected as well. Like usually when a member kind of leaves, it's because it like maybe clashes with their bandmates. You kind of like as a fan, you kind of see it coming, but this
Hmm.
one, I completely came out of left field, and you could even make an argument that Nemophila are probably at the height of their popularity at the minute and probably going really well. So. It
Well,
must have been something. It
yeah.
must have been something major to me to let her leave. Hopefully nothing to do with health issues or anything.
Well, I don't, I can't help but feel that there might be some sort of creative thing. I mean, I'll dive into the announcement in just a second, but the one thing that really I've always kind of said about Nemophila is that on a purely musical level, they're amazing. I mean, they are kind of a super group. In a lot of ways. You've got elements of Mary's Blood, obviously, amongst other things. They're all from, they're not like totally fresh face. They've all got background and everything in being, experienced musicians. And the interesting thing about that is that you often hear about them appearing on other things, like the drummer who Mayu's the vocalist, right? Tamu's the drummer. I always get their names confused. Tamu, the drummer, she's been on so many things. She's been drumming to Wasta. She's been on all kinds of like these projects where she drums along with other people. You've had obviously the guitarists, both, as far as I'm aware, have done multiple sort of featurettes and other things. Mayu, the singer, was very prominent at the oh god, now I'm going to forget the name of this. Yeah, the show concert they do for female rock bands. God, everything I'm saying sounds so vague. Anyway, look, all of them have their own little places to go, and I get the feeling because they've always been more recognizably amazing, almost as like top tier session musicians. Their songwriting was always the thing that had to catch up, and it kind of was catching up, and they were getting more and more interesting. More and more of their songs were getting more and more creative and unique, and they were starting to get an identity. But then I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that identity wasn't what she was massively into. And when that talented, you're going to have a lot of places to go and things to do that might appeal to you more.
Yeah, yeah. I can only think that that's what it is. It's got to be some form of creative difference. I mean, we saw the same kind of happen with Mio. I think where you look at the popularity of Love Bites a little bit, and if you're not happy with what you're doing, sometimes you just got to think, look, this is good, but is this really what I want to do? And sometimes it means taking that step back to make that
Sorry,
step forward.
you sure you're not talking about Yui from Baby Metal? Oh!
And we've just worked so hard to get so many subscribers to this channel.
And away they go.
And away they go. But
But yeah, I think sometimes creative differences sounds like such a conflict thing. I think sometimes, as you say, sometimes it might. Well, I mean, I don't know if you categorize it as the same thing. Sometimes it might just be someone looking at something and going, I don't know, this is growing. I don't know if it's growing the direction I want to be, or it doesn't want to be like the ship that I want to be sailing on forever. But
yeah.
sort of sudden realization, oh, this is really serious. Do I
Yeah,
really?
I mean, like you touched on as well, like all these girls are like so multi-talented and they've kind of got their fingers dipped in so many kind of different pots all around like the music industry. It
Hmm.
makes me wonder whether or not like there wasn't enough tension maybe being put on Nemophila. Maybe some of the girls wanted to make it go further and put more effort into it, but some of them might have been more chilled out doing multiple things, have their different varied tastes. Or it could be the complete opposite fact. It could be the fact that, the band wanted to do more with Nemophila, or she did, and the other girls were happy with it
Sorry,
the way it
I just
was.
I got the image of like Saki being like, well, I got busy. I got lots of things that I want to do, and Mayu just being like, I had a baby.
Well, Yeah, there's lots of things. I think if you look at NEMOPHILA, like I feel like NEMOPHILA, and this is really weird because I just said at the beginning, like their popularity is probably better than it ever has been. I honestly feel like they were going to be one of the major bands in the circuit for like metal for metal music in Japan.
Yeah.
Definitely up there. But they've been hit by so many different things. Obviously, COVID being one of them. Probably set them back a couple of years. But they did, to be fair, they probably actually went forward a little bit with all the great covers and stuff that they did on YouTube. They kind of utilized that really, really well. But obviously, like you just said, Mayu's
How
just had a
active were
baby.
they before that? 'Cause, I mean, my knowledge of
They
them coming
they
into
were
existence was through those covers,
Yeah,
to
they
be
were they were
honest.
they were popular beforehand, and then I just think they were
Okay.
formed at the wrong time. And then, like you said, yeah, for most people, I think 90% of people that are fans probably know them from the covers from the YouTube stuff. I think that's where they really garnered popularity.
Yeah.
Where most bands were kind of like under labels a little bit more, and were probably going into hiatus and not being able to release stuff. They were banging out some
I,
covers and stuff like that and becoming more and more popular. So it probably helped them out in that instance.
I I've got to be honest, I have such mixed feelings about that covers era of Nemophila because from a pure business decision, I think it was absolutely brilliant. I mean, I've always said this, if you want a band to be recognized, then just doing some covers on YouTube is a great way to start, especially if you're talented musicians. I also think doing that during lockdown, it was like the perfect time. I mean, everything about that, they launched themselves perfectly and they seem to have dealt with their growing success really well. And they seem to be on the circuit around about. But I have to be honest, like the covers, I don't know if this is like a seriously unpopular opinion, but hey, we have to have them to make this channel what it is. The covers era was, to me, that was like the most that's like I just didn't get their covers at all. I was like, and that was when I came to the conclusion you are really great musicians more than you are songwriters. Because when it came to the covers, I was like, you haven't really rewritten these songs. You're just doing all of them as straight rock. And so I never got into the covers era. But then when I
Mm.
started hearing their songs, I was like, okay. And then it progressed. And then when we got like Seize the Fate, the album Seize the Fate, I was like, here we go. Here is some of that identity. You know, N10 is just like one of those songs. It's like no one else has quite got an N10. That is like, oh,
Mm.
that's some sonic identity. I know like a lot of that is the other vocalist in there as well, but I mean, it's just like there is so much creativity going on there. So yeah, for me, like I get the covers face, but I don't think I
Yeah,
ever go back and listen to any of their covers because I'm just like, these are all just like straight versions of the song.
I'm kind of the same a little bit. I don't when I go back and listen to Nemo, I listen to more of their original stuff. Then I do really kind of going back to their cover stuff that they did on YouTube.
Oh,
It,
okay, like the
it,
debuting
yeah, yeah.
self-written stuff. Okay.
It kind of like again. I feel like their popularity is the best it's ever been. Like this announcement really does kind of come left field a little bit. And it's one of those announcements, like I said, usually as a band or a fan, you can kind of feel it coming. There's like a few warning signs here and there, but this one really did feel like it
You
came
know,
out of nowhere.
I think it's probably got more in common. And by the way, I should say before I say this, I never really got to the. I don't think anyone got to the full bottom of what's going on here. I don't want to open a can of worms on this one, but I think there is a similarity to what happened with Sire at Hanabiya,
Mm.
Hanabiya, however you want to say it. And I think there are quite a lot of other bands who can probably sympathize with this. And this is again why I go back to saying that I think what you were originally hinting at is probably quite a good way of looking at it. In that you're in a band and just suddenly it starts exploding. Of course, first thing you're going to do is look at it and go, well, let's see where this goes. You know, you're going to jump on a really successful album, you're going to do some tours. And then it's after you've had a little taste for it, that might be the point where you're like, oh, I don't know. I mean, how many bands have had that? Like a real breakout, and then it's after the real breakout that one member changes. That's not an unheard of story. So I think there's
Yeah.
got to be. I mean, obviously we don't know, and it'd be wrong to label every single example. But I think
What?
that there's a really good indication that there's
Yeah.
probably a precedent
I
for
mentioned this on
losing
my
a member at
stream
this
the other
time.
night because I had people jumping in when I did my stream on Monday, and we were actually talking about this a little bit. I didn't want to get too into depth because I wanted to save it for what we're talking about here. But I actually did say then, and I'm going to say it now again. I said the landscape is different for Japanese artists more than so than Western. I feel like if you're in a Western band and you make it, you're more like you're in that band for life. There's less success if you solo or go out of it. Whereas with the Japanese
Mm.
community at the minute, most of these girls are in the idol industry, they're in the rock group, they all go to parties together, everybody knows each other. It's not hard to go from one thing and go and do another thing. Like it's more socially accepted in Japan that you can do all these different things, and it's not really too bad. It might have varying degrees of success. Like if you're in like a AAA band, that's great, and you go off and do a side gig like an indie band. It might not be like the level of the AAA band you're in, but you'll find some like good moderate success.
That's a
Which
fantastic point, actually. That's a very strong point. I
um
mean, you look at I mean, ironically, recently Bratz broke up, but I mean, I know Bratz started before Lady Baby, but Bratz continued whilst Lady Baby was going.
mm,
Bish, Pedro was going at the same time. Pedro's remained going.
yeah.
These are groups who don't have the same degree of success, but they are important to the people because they are the creative outlet that maybe more speaks to them.
Yeah, so that I feel like there's less of a risk, like compared to like Western thing bands again. I feel like if you're leaving a band, that's a really big risk because there's no guarantee. There is zero guarantee that you'll ever be picked up by another label ever again in your career. There is like 10% of the entire people in the Western audience have ever done that with like some names like Slash, for instance, who's a guitarist that's gone on to be like mainstream
Robbie
popularity.
Williams.
I tell you what, I quite like a bit of Robbie Williams. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like everyone secretly likes a couple of Robbie
Everybody
Williams
secretly
songs.
likes a Robbie Williams song. Um, but yeah, it's a risk for them. Where I feel like it's less of a risk in this industry.
I
Um,
I
they're
think
less
that's
inclined to stay.
more. Uh, I mean, the problem is that I think that there are a lot of interesting things in that whole whirlpool you were saying about how acceptable things are, about how tight knit the groups are, and I think that's true. And I would be I wouldn't want to really pull any of those points out too much because I think it could be a real spider's web of all the different things and how much each one of them affects this kind of thing. It would be a very interesting thing to dive into. But I don't think really, it's hard to say. But I think the one thing that maybe is actually very helpful more than any of that is, and maybe fueling that, is the consumer economy style that music in Japan has. There is a massive fan base who do actively consume and spend money on music and music related
Yeah,
memorabilia in a way that I know there are music scenes in other countries, but it's not quite as much as Japan. Yeah, the Japanese music industry is
yeah.
unusually profitable for its size. And
I
obviously, yeah, we all know how Japanese people really connect to
mm,
music in a way that a lot of the rest of the world has done less so. So I think more it's more a case of if you move into a small band or if you move into a smaller
mm,
project, it's not like diving into the unknown. There is still a support mechanism, a reliable income to be found there. I mean, we've spoken on this channel before about how like cheaper idol groups who are only known to like, you know, a handful of 20, 30 people can have successful careers that go on for years.
yeah.
Because like you say, the loyal fan base. I think it's just that there is no, okay, I'm not famous anymore, so
Mm,
my career's over. It's a case of I'm not famous anymore, but I can still make money in these smaller projects.
yeah.
And then if I do good with them, my fame will allow me to drag back up towards that fame a little bit quicker. Um,
I also have a theory. It's like unsubstantiated, like what I've got here. But do you want to hear a
Fuck yeah,
neon
let's do it.
theory?
Oh
Right.
shit, it's gonna get into like the fucking
We
ear
all
to
know.
these info wars
Well,
at this point or
there's a
something.
few things that line up here, but again, I can only look at this from the outside. This is just me spitballing. By the way, don't like take this with a massive pinch of fucking salt.
What kind of crazy ass
Um,
conspiracy theory are we
right.
gonna
So we
get?
all know how like really old fashioned the Japanese music industry is, right? By the way, so
In many ways.
in many ways. So I'm taking a leaf here a little bit from the idol industry, where most idols they're not signed up to like multi-deal contracts. They are signed up yearly, and what happens is they have their contract renewed at a certain date. Now, if the Japan music industry is as old as I assume it to be, they will probably renew contracts on a financial yearly basis, which is usually from the 1st of April to the 1st of April the following year. That's usually how a financial thing usually works. Now, Saki is not the only person in the last couple of days to announce that they're leaving, not being
Yeah.
kept on, and everything's going. And it's all these bands are now making these announcements in the span of a week before the 1st of April. Now, I've got no
Um,
concrete evidence to suggest this, but it could be a possibility that she wasn't signed on, or
th-
she didn't sign a new contract with the label or stuff like that and let it run out.
this theory is one that I think has a degree of reality to it.
This
I
is just
think
me, by the way. I'm just trying to connect
no,
the
that
dots.
there is. I want to be careful because again, I don't have any proof, and even if I did have proof, I wouldn't say it was a rule across the entire industry. But I do have reason to believe that that actually is very likely true in many cases, or at least in enough cases to be statistically interesting.
Yeah.
I do also think it's interesting. I should point out how a lot of these announcements came out on the last day of March because obviously they didn't want to say it on the first day of April because
Of
everyone would think
April,
they were
because
taking the piss. Because yeah, April
April
Fools.
Fools.
So the interesting thing is that you were right. I mean, obviously the one which makes an interesting through line there is that when Bratz announced their disbandment, the way they announced it was by saying, they said it very literally, and this goes into what you were saying, in that Bratz literally said in their announcement, might not be verbatim, but this is what they said, is that the band has been on hiatus, but we have been, this is the date for our contract renewal, and we have decided not to renew it because we're inactive. And I believe it was actually their management company who came out and stated this, and therefore saying that they were hoping that Bratz would resume, but Bratz had not intended to come in and re-sign the contract. They actually said that, which was the first time I'm aware of a band actually having openly stated that it was just well, look, we just didn't renew the contract.
Well, that's the thing about my theory as well. There's very, very little bands, if any, with Bratz of the exception, that are ever going to turn around and go, well, she left because she didn't sign a new contract. They're always going to say,
I think it was the agency in that case as well.
Yeah, they're always going to say, oh, it's creative differences, or she's got things on her mind. They're always going to be nice about it. They're not going to turn around and go, well, Saki wanted more money. Didn't
I
sign any
think,
contract.
well, no, I think
Yeah.
creative differences usually is when they know that there's the possibility of someone spilling the beans about an argument later on. I mean, as I've said before, creative differences, I think that's shorthand for people didn't agree on the direction and everyone wanted to take charge of something but couldn't agree on it. But in this case, like you say, if someone just suddenly like, oh yeah, we've gone our way, it could be the contract, but it also could be, like you say, it could be that person had creative differences and then decided to run out the contract, and they intentionally did that.
Yeah.
I would actually, I'll tell you what, at this point, just while we're going into this, I know this has been on the screen for a while, but I will just quickly read out the actual announcement.
Yeah, go for it. Should have done that before.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. I was just enjoying the conversation. And then after this, I think we can talk a little bit about what we want for the future, because I think that's an interesting point as well. So anyway, just quickly reading the English translation. They posted the translation, which is a nice change and obviously shows how much they know they got foreign fans. So important announcement to everyone, not just NEMOPHILA fans, everyone in the world. Thank you for always supporting NEMOPHILA. I love how they always start that way. We're sorry to inform you that the band's guitarist, SAKI, will be leaving the band due to differences in direction. So that was the interesting thing. It did actually point out differences in direction. Yeah, the fact that it's differences in direction, I mean, it suggests to me like she's got other projects she wants to do. It might not even be a creative thing, just maybe there's other things she wants to do. We apologize sincerely for this sudden announcement to all our fans and staff who have supported us. So I do wonder who knew about this, how far in advance. For almost 5 years,
they knew. If my suspicion is correct about her running down her contract, they knew months in advance.
But by they, I wonder, does that mean her individual management? Does that mean the record
Everybody,
company?
the band would have knew, the record company would have knew, she would have knew, but nobody would have said. Yeah, nobody would have said anything until the day arrives. But
that's the bit where I'm not sure whether I do agree with you, because you could be right, but it could well be that she has her own management and that they just didn't say it. It could be. That's the sort of thing where we'll never know. Anyway, for almost 5 years since the band formed, the 5 members have walked the same path as NEMOPHILA. However, when we consider the future of the band and the happiness of each member, we have come to the conclusion that is for the best of us to part ways at this time. That's the kind of fluff where I have zero belief that could be true or that could be bullshit. I have no faith that that's anything more than announcement padding. Could be true, might not be. From now on, the band members will be Mayu, Hazuki, Haraguchi-san, Tamu. Saki will continue her career as a solo guitarist. Interesting. This came from NEMOPHILA. She did, so actually Saki reposted this on her Twitter. But I do wonder whether that means that she hasn't actually signed on to do any other bands, whether she's signed on to do like a solo project and she has a contract for that. And last paragraph, I'll quickly read. Each of us will be taking different paths, but we would like to express our sincere gratitude for the love you have shown to the music and band thus far. We hope that you will continue to support us with unwavering love. Do not question. The music by our four-member lineup, the music created by Saki, and the music created by Saki as we move forward. That's the bit that I really liked at the end, was they said, and the music created by Saki. So clearly there is a goodwill to them wanting everyone to move forwards, which I guess you're always going to get that in an announcement anyway. Everyone's going to want to come off on like nice terms. But still, I just felt like everything about this kind of suggested that, okay, whatever happened, they're all kind of like at peace with it. So anyway, there you go.
Yeah, there's definitely some creative differences and stuff like that. Either from one of the girls or most of the girls. Like again, they got their fingers in so many pies. I just wonder if it was not maybe a conscious effort on just NEMOPHILA that maybe she was a bit disillusioned with. Although she's doing her own solo stuff as well, so
I don't know enough about Saki solo. I know
it was really good actually. It was really good. She released one the other day. We talked about this in the when we were doing a instrumental band. I included her because her solo stuff is actually really decent. She's very talented with that.
What do you imagine her doing moving forwards? I mean,
when I heard the announcement, my heart fluttered a bit because to me, technically, Mary's Blood hasn't announced that they've disbanded. They're technically still on hiatus. So I kind of looked at that and I was like, oh, could this be a return of Mary's Blood? I don't know what the other girls are doing right now, so I can't comment on if they're doing anything right now, but I kind of hold out hope for that. We might not have like the original Mary's Blood members, or for all intents and purposes, they might not even be called Mary's Blood anymore. But it'd be cool to get kind of like a reunion or a
Mary's Dialysis.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah.
I got to be honest, I didn't dislike them, but I was never a huge Mary's Blood fan. I was always kind of more into what she did with NEMOPHILA, certainly when NEMOPHILA started to crunch down their direction. But I mean, I've no doubt about her talent, but that's kind of interesting. So I mean, do you feel like, I mean, that would obviously be like a dream scenario. Can you imagine her releasing solo albums on sort of like curating albums of like featurettes and collaborations? Do you think that's the direction she might go in?
Solo albums, I'm not too sure. Like
that's what this announcement kind of indicates, but again, I'm not sure that I would necessarily take this announcement as being.
If I had to take like a bet of how I feel like that's going to go, if she takes the solo route, then I feel like that's like probably more of a YouTube career, where I feel like she may go in
reverse Fammy.
Yeah, kind of like she'll do her own stuff, take it at her own pace, release her own songs, have the creative say in pretty much everything that she does. And maybe at the same time, like I said, everybody knows everybody in that industry, so she might go and play a song with Asterism for say, or she could go and do something with Amora or something like that. There could be something in there as well.
Was it Saki who was playing with Lisa X?
I don't know. Can't
on that
off the top of my head
project. One of the members were Lisa X and Saki, because it was the Lisa X band. Now I know a lot of people have been talking about this, and I got asked to do a couple of like reactions on my Twitch streams to Lisa X stuff, and so there is a Lisa X band and all this kind of stuff. So I'm not 100% sure what that is, but I mean, I guess that's a possibility. She could be like lining something like, it could be Mary's Blood, it could be Lisa
it could be a brand new band as well. It could be brand new.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
don't know. I'm just clinging on to Mary's Blood a little bit because, like I said, technically they're not disbanded yet. Um,
Like I did with Silent Siren and the King. So feelings on NEMOPHILA, because this is the one where I've perhaps got more of an opinion, but I'm kind of intrigued. Well, actually, I'll tell you what, because I want to give a bit of a framework for your answer, if you don't mind.
all right, go on.
Because here's the thing, like almost everyone immediately, the chatter I saw was, oh, who's going to replace Saki? Who's going to replace Saki? My initial feeling was, you know what? Actually, I would like to see them with the pressure of only having like the lineup, the four-piece lineup, because I think it will put more pressure on them to be slightly more creative with their writing. And, I don't mean that as a negative. I actually mean that as sometimes when you're up against the wall, that's when you have to be more creative. That's when you like find more interesting things to do. And it also highlights the guitar work you have right now, rather than having so many guitarists, that it makes it a little bit too comfortable. Is that lack of comfort could actually produce something interesting. It's not like they're lacking the talent. A few people mentioned, obviously, the biggest problem with that is that live, that would put them in a situation where they would struggle to play their old songs. But I don't think it's likely. I think they'd probably find a support guitarist and bring them on board. But I would like to see NEMOPHILA go at it as a four-piece and see what they can do. That would be my thing.
I don't really see them changing, to be honest. I reckon they probably will draft in a fifth. The thing with me when it
Change
comes
them.
to when it comes to bands, um, I'll be honest with you, the guitarists and the bassist and the drummer, although it's never nice to get changed, it's so much easier to change a guitarist and a bassist and a drummer than a lead singer. I always feel like changing a lead singer is the hardest thing to do, and it's very rarely successful. So,
It's true.
so as long as Maya and all that is still doing her stuff, I feel like the identity of the band will pretty much stay intact. Whoever they draft in is obviously going to bring in their own kind of like signature style a little bit. So the songs maybe might take a slight change, but for all you know purposes, it's still going to be NEMOPHILA. 80% of them still, so it's going to sound like them. So I can't
For a
see.
secondary moment of sacrilege, I really, when I found out it was Saki who was leaving, I was trying to remember. It's like, who sounds like what on the actual record? I was just like, I know they got two guitarists, but I can't really differentiate who sounds like what. It's like, I know they have two guitarists.
I think Saki is definitely the biggest loss out of the two guitarists because I feel like
Really interesting.
because
Okay.
I feel like she's probably the more creative one. Having listened to her solo stuff, and I feel like she's got more in her bag musically wise, for like the riffs and stuff that she can play. So maybe in that sense, it's probably a little bit of a bigger loss, but they could they could bring anybody in, I think, right now that could fit that mold, and it will be okay. It won't be 100%. It never is when somebody leaves the band, but like I said, it will be there or thereabouts. It will still be
Well,
80%.
I'm hoping that Hazuki gets this moment to shine, step up, and show how awesome she can be. I hope that
There's that as well.
this will
Yeah,
maybe be her
that's
moment to
right.
step out from the shadow that you just placed above her into the limelight and go, no, Neon, no, I can be the best. I know you don't believe in me, Neon, but I can do it. So, all right. So hashtag Neon hates Hazuki. Let's go.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I hope she does. I hope they do bring in a rhythm guitarist and
I just saw your name on chat, by the way. Neon Filler. Nice.
yeah, I do hope they bring in another guitarist, a rhythm guitarist, and yeah, she does get a time to shine. Maybe that's where the creative differences were. And Saki's gone on done her own thing. I feel like the whole band's really, really talented, and they can do their own thing. I kind of agree with you on the covers that maybe songwriting is probably the weakest thing out from NEMOPHILA, I think,
But they have
as a
stepped
whole.
up
But they have
in the
stepped up.
last few years, and so I feel like I agree that they're at currently at the peak of their fame because they're on an upwards trajectory, and their songwriting seems to be becoming more and more identifiably unique. So I can only hope that. I mean, I honestly, actually, this is a good point. How involved in the songwriting was Saki? Because I'm going to go and check that real quick.
Yeah, that's gonna be a big one. If knowing her, like if the solo stuff and all that is an indication, I would probably go out my way and say probably very heavily. Um, but
Really?
that's just an
Okay.
educated guess more than anything. Um, that will be the
Um,
real kicker. Is how will that affect them kind of moving forward a little bit in the songwriting department?
they always felt to me like a band where and I hate to say this, at first they felt like a band who kind of wrote by committee. You know, it always felt like, oh, we just sort of like pass ideas backwards and forwards. And like I said about the covers, there at first there was not a strong creative identity. But I feel like that's something that's been more and more coming through. So it might well be. I mean, it would be a real shame if that identity was actually coming through from her, and then Saki, like after starting to deliver an identity, decided to leave. But just having a little look through some articles related to them here. Um, so Hazuki has apparently said that they welcome input from from outside, which makes sense from the producers, but it doesn't really say um composing songs. So it just sort of says that they compose songs, but it doesn't really oh,
Say
here we
who-
go. So Saki described the process as not all that different from when the band writes their own songs. After the songs are finished, we discuss the image the songs has to convey with Mr. Akiyama, who I believe was the producer in question. Then we add our own ideas to the so it does seem to be like writing by committee to a certain degree, which I think it's a good way to keep the peace, but I don't think ultimately is a good way to create a creative identity. So it might well be that someone is more stepping up, but okay, that at least means that they've got it's not like they were relying on one songwriter who might have just stepped away. They'll I guess we'll just lose her influence in the songwriting more than anything.
Yeah. So all in all, probably my overarching opinion to this is probably it's a loss. It's a gutting loss. I don't think it's the end of the world, though. I could probably actually see
No,
it be a good thing for both her
kick
individually
up the ass. Yeah.
and NEMOPHILA. My only worry is, like I said, they were on such an upwards trajectory. I hope this doesn't
I don't think
make
it
them start
will.
to stutter.
I don't think it will. I mean, seemingly they weren't relying on her songwriting to that degree.
Hmm.
Seemingly, as we've mentioned, I mean, it's not like they didn't have another guitarist. It's not like they lost their only bassist or something. And we saw
Yeah,
how Love Bites bounced back from that. I mean, I do still think that NEMOPHILA would be, if they're going to have a new member, they should do exactly what Love Bites did with the auditioning a new member. That was genius. Open
that
it
was
up to
great.
everyone, but kind of have a good idea of what you really want, and then maybe bring in a
I
YouTuber
don't
or
know. I
someone.
don't. I feel like family was such a left choice for them. Like considering they're all stoic and serious, having family
Well,
just in the middle of them going.
but
That's such an odd choice.
that's
But
why she was perfect. I mean, from the very first time, I always said this, from the first time we saw that first picture where the band's looking cool, and she's like holding a guitar. I was like, that picture to me was like right decision, because the thing is that just as a look, she looks perfect. She's got the elegant, you can imagine her looking good in the Love Bites dress and everything. She's obviously got the musical talent, but at the same time, she's got a personality that's very sort of amicable, but different, interesting. And that's where NEMOPHILA could score such a win here. Open it up to everyone so that everyone gets excited. So, but then secretly know that what you really want is maybe like another cool looking rock chick. But maybe then it
she
turns out to
needs
be
to be a
someone who
bombshell.
looks really different. Well, I mean, they could go someone totally different. They could have someone who's maybe got a bit of international blood. So it could be someone who's like half Japanese, half from like a different culture. Someone who maybe fits in well, but looks totally different. Or it could be someone totally Japanese who's just got like a very different
I
personality.
wonder if they
Anything,
open
a
it up. I
YouTuber.
wonder if they'll
I'm interested.
yeah, I wonder if they'll have the same approach Love Bites did, where they opened it to not only female but males as well. That would be interesting.
But they should do what Love Bites did, open it up to guys so that everyone's interested, everyone feels like they got a chance to be a NEMOPHILA, but then secretly make the wise choice of hiring another woman who looks right. Let's face it, I always said this, there's nothing wrong with having attractive people in your band, because when you got that much of a pool of talent available to you,
Mm.
you're going to be able to get quality, so why not get someone who looks good in the band?
It looks good in the process. Yeah, I suppose so.
It's like you might as well get every single box ticked because you got enough people applying. So yeah, I think NEMOPHILA will be fine, whether they go forward as a four piece or whether they have an audition and get someone really interesting from left field. I think they'll be fine. I think like I don't think we're going to see any problems for Saki. She's got the talent, and clearly her decision to leave was not because like she had no choice. It was because she probably has too many choices and knows what she wants to do herself. So I guess we can just excitedly look forward to, I think, more exciting opportunities, more exciting things will come from this. I think in the same way that like Sire's leaving didn't scupper Hanabiya, and your Love Bites picked themselves up and dusted themselves off so quickly as well with Mihal leaving. Yeah, I think the NEMOPHILA will be fine.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine as well. I'm interested just to see what happens in the future, really, in both accounts, and hopefully for me personally, the return of Mary's blood.
Okay. Oh,
That's what
that's
what I'm hoping for.
We can see you've got your cards very much on the table. Anyway, let's wrap it up for now, I think. I've been looking forward to seeing what everyone says in the comments. This is a really cool conversation. I really enjoyed this. We were only going to talk about this briefly, but I think we had a really good chat about this one. So I'm really interested to know what you guys think. Of course, if you're a diehard NEMOPHILA fan who knows a little bit more than we do, then get in there as well. Tell us a little bit more information. We love our Japanese music, but we're always welcome to hear a little bit more from the diehard fans who know a little bit more. If you're a casual viewer of NEMOPHILA, you might have some interesting opinions from outside of what you might want to see change to make yourself a bit more of a fan. Either way, looking forward to seeing what you say. And do you want to do the closing line today?
Oh, you gonna let me?
Well, I feel generous. I feel like a kindly baka today.
Oh, dear. Oh, yeah, then yes, I will abuse your generosity. So keep your
Too late. No, God.
Don't forget to keep your ears to the east. It could be that way. We still don't know.
I just asked him to do that because of the fact that he has to press the button and now he can't.
No!